Today on the Self Smarter podcast.
Conflict can be really good because it just means that we're accepting a difference of the way we might feel, or we understand the art of defending our position without insulting someone else. Hi, we're Danelle and Megan, the hosts of this conversation-centric podcast for leaders seeking to be better every day. Whether you choose to be a leader in the workplace, at home, or in your community, we believe the most effective leaders are equipped to not only be self-starters, but self-smarter.
Hello and welcome to Self Smarter. I'm Megan and this is my friend and co-host Danelle.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, happy day.
Yeah,
It's
back
sunny.
in Dallas.
We're back in Dallas.
Warm here.
It is hot. Lord.
Here we go talking about the weather again.
Well, it
Guess our listeners
matters.
expect that.
Yes.
At this by this time.
It matters. If we're already warm, it's May.
Uh-oh.
So things are coming up. It's going to get hot.
Absolutely.
So I want to open today with a little something special.
Okay.
Because I should have looked this up. So podcast listeners, Danelle and I listen to the podcast like listeners.
Yeah.
So we record the podcast and then it could be a couple weeks that go by. It could be 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And we're listening on Mondays just like you are to the podcast. So I'm listening to one of our recent podcasts.
Okay.
It's been in the last 4. And you casually mentioned that you had a pony. It was at the top of the podcast. You're like, I had a pony. And I didn't even address it. I don't think I even heard it when we were recording, but I certainly heard it.
Gosh, I don't remember the context. So what's the deal? Did you not have a pony?
Said, did you have a pony? She looks at me like, that's so odd that I didn't have a pony.
Yeah.
What was the deal with your pony?
What do you
And
mean?
how do you just drop that out? I've never
I
heard
had a
you-
horse. Would that have been different? Would you have heard it different?
Yeah, but it was a pony at
Well,
one
it was
point.
I had 2 ponies.
Oh, was that so
I had
fun?
I had a Shetland pony, which was mean as hell. They're mean. I'm straight up.
How'd you know?
Because it would bite and kick, and it was little, and it was pissed off.
Do you think he was mad because he was
Well,
tiny?
was a she? I don't know. I'm just telling you. I don't know if my parents couldn't afford a whole horse, but they got me a pony.
Do you know how many children want a Shetland pony? Like,
Well, I'm telling you, parents, you need
Don't
to
do it.
check it out, because there's no way in hell I'd buy Mackie Payton a pony, because that one was me. But then we upgraded. Well, we didn't. I don't know if we got rid of her. I can't remember. I just remember
She
the
went
horse
missing?
that I had maybe the one that I had the longest was a Welsh pony, which is taller, but it not like full horse size.
did you ride these ponies?
I rode both of them. I have so many stories about riding, and yeah, that's how I got around.
So Danelle is so sophisticated and cityfied, and then these like comments come out. Yes, I used to ride these ponies.
Well, I grew up in the country. I think most people know that.
We forget.
You forget?
I forget. I for sure forget. I don't even think pony. I know you raised cows and I know you raised pigs, but I've
Yes.
never heard you talk about horses.
Of course I had horses, yes.
Okay, well, did this pony have a name?
Yeah, well, the little one, man, I cannot remember the little one, and you sprung this on me.
Yes, I did.
The one that was my prize pony was Star.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's
Do we have
part of-
pictures of Star?
I mean, probably in some box somewhere, but
Okay.
I'd have
Dig.
to dig for those, but I'll try to find some, but I doubt it. Yeah.
No,
I can't believe you would think that would be odd.
that's a big deal.
For a kid that lived in the country to have a is it because of the word pony? Like if I would have said I had a horse, would that be different?
Maybe.
Okay, but pony just triggered you.
Because everybody wants a pony when they're young. You know, under the age of 13, I
Well, I'm
think.
telling you, if you want to curb that, let them go play with a Shetland pony for a hot minute, and maybe they might change their mind. To all you wondering parents, they're mean.
Meaner than a pepper sprout.
Yes, to quote Johnny Cash or
yes.
June Carter, I guess.
Yeah, one or the other.
Whoever
for
wrote it.
I just need to listen to you more. Like the revelation was, how did she throw down a pony drop and I just la 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 right on by it?
Well,
Did y'all hear that, listeners?
yeah.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Well, if there's any time there's a little zinger that anyone needs
Wants to know
more about, just send us a message and say I need more backstory on
Deets on the pony.
Deets on the pony. Okay.
So listeners, we want you to know we were in New York. Danelle mentioned that already. We were in New York last week recording a lot of podcasts with folks that are there or not even from there, but traveled to New York to be with us. And so we're really excited about some upcoming content.
I mean, it's so rich. It exceeded my expectations, and I know all three of these guests fairly well. I know two of them very well, and then I was getting to know Julie, and I was, and I could tell you were too. Like there were times where we just didn't talk because we were so mesmerized by the wisdom that they were sharing or their incredible stories. But three just incredible artists, but also business minds and leaders in so many different ways and fashions. But I think you all, like us, will be inspired, and so we're really excited. Those episodes, and some of them will be a 2-part series because we just were so, they were just so in depth and such good conversations with these incredible people. And so those will be coming out in the next couple of months, but we're really excited to share those with you. And you had given us feedback at the end of the year or the beginning of this year, whenever we were polling our listeners, what did you want more of? And so there's 2 things that were top of that list, and that was more Enneagram content, which we're delivering to you today, and certainly more guest on the podcast. So really excited about it.
Really excited. All right, let's jump into Enneagram. But before that, let's hop to a quick advertisement. Do you want to give a great gift to someone who's graduating from high school, college, or maybe even trade school soon? Guess what? At Self Smarter, we're giving away a free hour of coaching time with Danelle and the student of your choice. What a great opportunity for someone who's entering the workforce or starting on their next phase of development in their career to have an hour with Danelle. She's coached students for years, guys. And so this is a real opportunity for someone that you care about to reap the benefits of having just 1 hour with a business leader. We're giving away up to 5 hours. So hurry, go to selfsmarter.com, fill out the form. Jordan has it ready for you, and we'll be in contact to schedule your coaching session. Okay, Danelle, let's dive into the Enneagram and why this particular topic is important. Today, we're talking about conflict triggers by Enneagram type. You and I have talked a lot about our relationship with conflict on this podcast.
Yeah.
But what we haven't done is we really haven't gone deep into other Enneagram types. And I know you thought this would be interesting.
Yes.
So in what we're going to share with you today, podcast listeners, are the triggers that each Enneagram type faces when we manage through conflict, particularly as leaders.
Yeah. And like what triggers us to even, face the conflict to begin with. And I think that's where a lot of the times the miss is that we don't understand what our triggers are. But then we kind of skip that phase and we find ourselves smack dab in the middle of a heated brawl.
Yes.
Well, not hopefully a brawl, but definitely an uncomfortable argument. Yes.
Yeah. And so this is to really avoid that and to make your conflicts more thoughtful and more productive so that we're ending in a peaceful nature and moving forward with a plan. So we'll talk more about that. But to start, I thought I pulled a couple of quotes for us, one that resonates with a 9, and then Danelle has one that resonates with a 7. So I'll start with mine. In terms of my relationship with conflict, here's a quote: "Peace is not absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means." And that was said by one of our 9 Enneagram presidents, Ronald Reagan.
Right. So the quote that resonates with me as a 7 on the Enneagram is this: 10% of conflict is due to difference in opinion, and 90% is due to delivery and tone of voice.
So why did that resonate with you?
I mean, because I think I have found myself, and again, I'm sure it has to do with me being a 7, but I think it's other parts of my personality as well. I can run pretty high energy, which can also translate into I can get hot pretty quick. And so what I have found through years of dealing with conflict, resolution, conflict, you name it, is that so much of it can be solved around approach, which in this quote, it's saying delivery and tone of voice. And I naturally can go to a higher, my voice raises very quickly. A volume.
Yes.
And I've dealt with that as long as I can remember.
Sure.
So for those of you who may not be a 7 on the Enneagram, some of us just get to that higher volume quicker. And I think tone, I've struggled with, and I've been very open with our listeners about this in my past. I can be very sarcastic. I can be a bit sharp with comments. And so I have to temper that. And what I'm finding interesting, and again, I think all of you know that I'm forming new relationships, living in New York, and as I'm navigating those relationships differently than I have in the past, I'm more conscious of these things. So if I present myself in this way that I'm explaining to you all, they may not understand me. And so for you,
known you for a long time.
Know me for a long time. And even if my voice is, or if I'm being a little bit more, I'm showing more conviction, or if I'm certain of something, or if I'm frustrated with something, you know how to discern all of that because you know my heart and you know I'm just working through something. And so I think that's where the awareness around conflict triggers come. And I've obviously, as everyone also knows, I spent a lot of time in therapy working through some of these things to enrich the relationships that I have and that hope to have for the rest of my years. And this is something that was, when you see that quote, that really 10% of it's only due to difference of opinion. Now, this is not a sourced, so I don't know if this, where these percentages come from, but when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it's usually delivery and tone. And I'm taking responsibility in this instance of my own, because you asked me what my relationship was with conflict. But I think I can also, what I'm trying to do is see that in others and be like, wait a minute, there's an emotion tied to what they're feeling at this time, obviously. And so if I take that into consideration instead of just automatically going into conflict mode, then maybe we can find ourselves being able to avoid that, and it literally just be, oh, that's your opinion about that, and this is mine. So
right,
that's a little bit long-winded, but
no,
that is,
I think it's great. I mean, that as a leader who doesn't love conflict, and I don't think anybody does. I really don't. I think all Enneagram types have a specific relationship with conflict, but I don't think it's like, I only know one person in my life that's like, bring it.
Well, and you know what? I know who you're talking about. And I think that comes from a place of sincere, I know several individuals like that. And I truly believe they love the debate.
Yes.
And so
they don't want to fight.
No. And it took a while to figure that out. And,
yeah.
And sometimes people find themselves, relative to conflict, sometimes it's context they're seeking.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yes, it is. I really enjoy the art of debate. People feel that way. And where I think, in those instances is if you can really think about it with, yes, I would like to have a discussion about this or know where you're coming from, then it's really, if it's driven with curiosity, it doesn't have to turn into conflict. And those are simple techniques around tell me more, or I'd like to understand why you feel that way. I mean, and again, we have plenty of episodes that cover tactics on dealing with difficult conversations, right, that all kind of plays into this. But I thought what, Meg was able to find in prepping for this episode is where I think we can miss often. And again, this is doing a lot of work in this particular area, is what triggers us to begin with. Correct. And so that's why we want to share this, because I think it's extremely helpful in the workplace.
Yes.
Because I can tell you, I'm encouraged when I see on our team when people don't agree. That's when sometimes I have a different opinion, yeah, or when they're seeking to understand more, that's when
you're learning,
you're learning. And because what I can see is that we're just most often, and for most people, and I guess I could say this for most numbers, as you stated, that most people, conflict isn't fun.
Yeah.
But if we can repackage conflict,
yes,
to be more
necessary
about in deeper understanding and really caring about what someone else thinks or what they have to say, it doesn't mean you walk away agreeing.
Right. Yeah.
But it's the triggers, because I think our our most reactions in most people is just let's avoid conflict altogether.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Avoidance is,
And then where do we get?
you don't get anywhere.
Right.
You may avoid a difficult conversation or an uncomfortableness, but it's not, to me, there's not a lot of growth in that.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah, and I think, you have some stats here to share, because one of the questions I had was, is this a problem? So your stats here answer that question.
yeah, so the Myers-Briggs companies, the creators of popular Myers-Briggs, I'm sure most people listening know what that is. They released in October 22 research results that zeroes in on conflict. And they say that the conflict at work, research insights include poor communication is the number one cause of conflict, which also parlays back into the quote that I shared. And nearly 1 in 4 people think their managers handle conflict poorly or very poorly. And they also said that the more time that an individual is spending dealing with conflict at work, the lower their job satisfaction and the less included they feel.
Which is contradictory to what you would think. You would think that people would be happier with less conflict. But in fact, their study is saying no. People realize that conflict is good from a resolution perspective, but their managers don't know how to lead them through it.
Right.
Which is why this is so important for our listeners.
Correct. And they also say the bottom line is that conflict exists and we could all work on becoming better at managing ourselves when we enter into a position of conflict. And so, again, understanding what triggers is the place to start.
That is.
It's
Perfect.
the place to start. And I would also say changing your mindset to, if you struggle with the notion of it all together, is realizing it can be a really good thing.
Yes.
And then for those of us who just like to run into it because it's a sport.
Right. Yeah.
We also need to be more conscious of, and I don't know that I put myself in that category because I think I can toggle. It depends on what the subject matter is.
Yes.
Back and forth.
Yes.
And I think the work that I've done, I can be more comfortable with it now. But I think that it really is a mindset around conflict can be really good because it just means that we're accepting a difference of the way we might feel, or we understand the art of defending our position without insulting someone else. And then obviously then that leads us into what triggers us to begin with. So.
Right. I just want to say before we dive into the numbers, the types, that I think you and I have both learned, we both come from we both have different relationships with conflict, but neither of us like it. What people have to do is just accept that nobody wants to do it, nobody likes to do it, but having to do it, practicing doing it, and making it not so scary has made all the difference. So you'd say to me, for example, before I was in this role, as I was working to get into this role, you would say, no, listen, I know you don't want to have that conversation. Most people don't have to have that conversation, but you need to, because it's going to add another stripe.
It is, and I think, leaders today of any kind, we have to not only be able to manage conflict ourselves, but we have to be able to lead by example others, so that conflict becomes a productive part of the work that we're doing as a team,
right?
And the teams that we're leading. So I think talking about it and sharing, and certainly I love teeing it up by Enneagram type, because it just gives us a more in-depth understanding of where we, depending on what our type is, are coming from, but then also those of us who we're leading or working with,
absolutely,
or being led by, actually. So
perfect. So why don't you start with Type 9? Type
9. Okay, so as you know, anytime we talk about the Enneagram, we start with Type 9 and work our way around. And so looking at the Enneagram diagram, 9s are at the top or in the 12 o'clock position. So we like to start there. So Type 9, the peacemakers, 9s are triggered in conflict when being told what to do or if they are treated disrespectfully. 9s are in conflict when not being heard or consulted or informed. So basically blindsided or overlooked. They are in conflict or triggered when others are mistreated or not supportive. So they like to stand up for others. And conflict is imminent in 9s when they try to avoid conflict and get angry with people who cause conflict because it forces things to be uncomfortable.
Right. So in other words, we don't like conflict just for the sake of having conflict.
No, because you're trying to avoid uncomfortable situations on the regular.
Yes. So. I would say those are right on. As a 9, those absolute triggers, unfortunately. All right.
They're not the worst triggers in the world. I don't know that any of these are. So I hope you are all listeners listening to this with an open mind, because this is good stuff that can really help us.
Yes, absolutely. And luckily I don't have to deal with these all the time.
Right.
And that all goes back to culture. Okay, let's talk about type 1, the reformer. 1s are triggered in conflict when others break the rules or go against processes they value or see as necessary. So if you're in a conflict with someone who's a 1, if you go off point whatsoever with data, incompetence, or your whole story is gone. 1s are triggered in conflict when others engage in behavior they view as inappropriate. 1s are triggered in conflict when differences in opinion on what's right. They have what they believe is a very centered value system and moral system. And so if that gets broken, they're out or they're triggered. And they're also triggered in conflict when instances of what they see as unfairness or injustice. They genuinely know the difference between right and wrong, and they will always stand up for what is right.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, type 2, the helpers. 2s are triggered in conflict when they feel unappreciated or they don't receive the credit or affirmation they expect.
Right.
So they can actually receive credit or affirmation, but if it's not delivered in a way that resonates with them, or if it's not what they had expected, then it's nil. And so that's something to pay attention to. 2s are also triggered in conflict when the threat of rejection or disapproval is at hand or imminent. They are also triggered when they feel as though they aren't being seen or understood, especially if they are disregarded or excluded. And we know this to be true from the 2s in our world. And they can actually articulate that quite well, the ones that are healthy.
Yes.
And then obviously they're triggered in conflict when people do not meet their unspoken needs.
And that word is so critical.
Unspoken. Yes.
Like mind reading. And as someone who, and I'm going to confuse everybody, I am a 9, but I tied as a 2. But when my husband and I first got married, one of the things in therapy that the therapist would tell us as newly married couples was, Megan, he's not a mind reader. Like that just still sticks in my mind. He's not a mind reader. You have to express your needs. And I'm like,
But it's really hard for 2s because they're seeking affirmation.
Yes.
And they're the helper. They want to show up in a way. So to be able to sometimes say, this is what I need, that's not necessarily something that's natural for them or comfortable, I should say. I think comfortable is more appropriate. But yeah.
Or they just can't even find the words.
Yes.
Okay, type 3, the achiever. So 3s are triggered in conflict when there is an obstacle that gets in the way of them reaching their goal. Woo!
Yes.
Yes. They are triggered in conflict when they are slowed down or not progressing. They are also triggered when they drop the ball and may have trouble with accountability. They look poorly in front of others. That's a trigger. If they look poorly in front of others, not good. And they're triggered if they do something that threatens them from a failure perspective. So really the theme here is failure, not able to achieve goals, not able to look the part of what they believe they are.
Yep. Yeah, but being held back from the performance that they've deemed is
lovable.
Yeah, actually it is. That's a great way to say it. Okay, type 4, the individualist. 4s are triggered in conflict when they are not being understood or they feel misunderstood. Again, remember 4s deep with the emotions.
Yes.
They're also triggered when they feel devalued or feel inferior to others. They also struggle when their creative vision or self-expression is not respected. They also struggle with conflict when they must share hard truths or if they feel like they aren't being taken seriously. And they are also triggered when people are not authentic. And that's a kind of a theme throughout a lot of the numbers. So these are how the 4s are triggered with conflict.
Yep. Okay, type 5, the investigator. 5s are triggered in conflict when they are pressed to share more information than they want. For example, if the nature of the information is personal or from an emotional place. So if you if you get into conflict with 5 about data that they know for sure and metrics, they'll be fine. They're triggered when you press on emotional. Yeah. Yep. They are also triggered in conflict when they must deal with others' emotions or if they get pulled into emotional entanglements. They don't want to have any part of that. They may not like it if someone starts crying in a conflict, for example. 5s are triggered in conflict when people don't respect deadlines, time limits, and boundaries. And they're also triggered in conflict when when the 5 doesn't feel like they have enough time or space to themselves to think or access information. So don't hold me back from being able to do what I will need to do.
Absolutely. Okay. Moving on. Type 6, the loyalist. 6 are triggered in conflict when they perceive authorities are misusing their power. And we know that to definitely be true for the 6s in our lives.
Yes.
They are also triggered when someone behaves in an inconsistent or unethical way that inspires distrust. They also struggle with conflict when they are unable to ask questions and express their doubts. Remember, the 6s, they come from
process it.
They're processing, and they are worst case scenarios, so that makes total sense. And they are also triggered in conflict if people shoot from the hip without citing facts. So there's several numbers in the Enneagram families that really care about context and facts, and that would be 1s, certainly 5s, and 6s
and 8s.
Those are the top numbers that really require. So if you're beginning a discussion that has the potential to lead to a conflict with these particular numbers, having your facts straight is important. And what I'd like to recommend, as I've learned to deal with these numbers, is if you don't have the facts, excuse yourself from the conversation until you do, or just say, you know what, I need to read up on that a little bit more. I need to study up. Or would you share some information? Because if what we're talking about here is to avoid conflict, then why wouldn't you take it as an opportunity to go, tell me more? Like, you seem to have more information about this particular topic than I do. Tell me what you know, and then maybe we'll circle back, depending on what it is. Like if it's something to do in the workplace.
Right.
I mean, if it's politics, then God bless you. I don't know how you're going to avoid conflict. But, I would like to think that we're a culture that can improve in that particular area. That's a sidebar. But I would recommend that it's okay if you don't have them just at the ready. I don't want us to avoid conversations because we don't have our book of knowledge with us at all times. You can use it as an opportunity to connect with someone and avoid conflict by just accepting that maybe they have more, maybe they know more about that particular topic than you do. That doesn't mean that that's the case, but having the humble nature and the self-confidence to be like, no, tell me, please inform me. And then I'd love to discuss that at a later time or a later date, or, wow, you really changed my opinion on that. It depends on, again, I think there's some finessing here, but what we're trying to give is information that puts us in a position to win.
Yes.
And strategies for when it doesn't, when it could be headed down a path where conflict is imminent.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, living with a 6, what I know about this is I usually don't bring up anything unless I can cite. Like if I'm going with an argument, I'm not going to say anything unless I can cite material that I found through a source that's trusted. I mean, I have to go deep.
Okay.
But
my goodness.
On the funny side, I'm listening to you and I'm just thinking about, because my husband's a 6 and it's like the citing facts and you're like, this doesn't have to be at work. And I'm thinking of me going last week and he's like, give me a date. And I'm like, one day, you know what I mean? How many times? I don't know, 100. He's like, okay, two times. But you've heard him say that.
I have. Yes.
She embellishes. She says these things. And I'm like, well, it means a lot. And he's like, no, it doesn't. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about 7s.
Okay.
All right. Type 7, the enthusiast. So 7s are triggered in conflict when they feel forced to focus on negative data or what's not working versus what is. Thought of you with writing that one. 7s are triggered in conflict when they are told what to do or not asked for their input, which is very similar to 9. Sevens are triggered in conflict when their freedom to choose or their options are limited.
Yeah,
Freedom being the word.
Pretty much the poster child.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Sevens are triggered in conflict when they are criticized or taken lightly. Mm-hmm. Why are people not listening to me?
Yes. And again, I think it's, again, being a stereotype 7, I would say it's around limitations when it comes to conflict. So that's when we can find ourselves in immediate conflict, is when we're limited by the information that someone's willing to share, when we're limited by the space to think or the space to be free. And when it's like, no, this is the only way to do something, like those are the examples that I can come up with because then we'll just go into full on argument mode.
Yeah.
And then of course that's going to lead to a conflict. Yep. So, yeah. All right. Type 8s, the challengers. 8s are triggered in conflict when others do not agree with, or if others actively go against their strongly held opinions or actions they want to take.
Right.
So we know that our beloved 8s most often have very strong opinions.
Yes.
Whether they're vocal with them or not, they're in there. 8s are also triggered when people attack or criticize their team or people under their protection. So they share that with the 9 as well. And they struggle with conflict when their ability to take action is blocked by indecision or incompetence.
Mm-hmm. So, or what they perceive as incompetence.
And boy, that's a quickie. So sometimes when they can find themselves in a heap of conflict when, they're just like, you don't have your facts. Like, you are not in a position to have any type of discussion with me right now because you're not coming to the table with...
Which is a lot like the 6.
Yes.
They get mistyped a lot.
Exactly. They also struggle when they are being lied to or kept out of the loop. Oof. Yes.
And I can see why.
Yes, absolutely.
That's not cool. Nobody wants to be lied to.
So those are the 9 Enneagram types and how what our triggers are that lead us to conflict.
Yep.
So.
And so if we're guiding more effective conversations that involve conflict so that we are improving our communication as leaders, back to that Myers-Briggs statistic, a lot of people feel like their managers are ill-equipped. Mm-hmm. So let's get equipped. So there's a model called the CREATE model, which is an acronym that helps leaders remember how to create a path for more effective working relationships. So just quickly, I'll run through this. So the word is create. C stands for context. Understand what the conversation is about. So what am I entering into? Mm-hmm. So this is really prep work, mind work that you can work on yourself as a leader to be prepared. And for me, when I'm teeing up a conversation, especially with another leader at DMA, I will let them know that this is what they need to think about. Like, what are we talking about? And so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. R stands for relationship, which essentially provides the safety for all parties involved in the communication or the conflict. Stating what you want for the person or what you want for yourself is important to reiterate when guiding the conflict. So what do we want here? Especially if someone gets heated quickly. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do we really want here?
Right, and I think too, understanding that's why we share this information, because if you're equipped knowing what the person's Enneagram type are or knowing something else about them, then this relationship part of the acronym is you already have an inkling of where this person is coming from, which is so important.
So important. E, so now we're the CRE. E stands for explore, which offers perspective. This helps you remember to identify what's working well and where improvements or changes need to be made. That's part of the conversation. That's part of the resolution. Mm-hmm. A stands for align, which puts you, the leader, in a position to paint a picture of what success looks like in the future. Share what success looks like in the future once the conflict is resolved. So we've gotten through the conversation. Let's reiterate that. Mm-hmm. We've decided together. Now let's move it forward. T stands for translate, which puts both parties in a position to create a plan. At DMA, we like to brainstorm ways we can achieve the success together. What you can do and what I can do. Mm-hmm. So it's fair. Mm-hmm. So how can I help this process? And here's what you can do. What do you think you can do to help this process along? And then the last letter of the acronym CREATE, E stands for establish, which which puts us in a position to agree, versus disagree, which is how we arrived at the conflict in the first place. This is the time to make personal requests, establish next steps, and set a timeline.
I think this is, this acronym was new to me. So when I was prepping for the episode, I kind of sat with this for a little bit and thought about it. And, I think in the moment, it's sometimes conflict creeps up before we even realize it. Yeah. And so I think this is so much about a conflict is being self-aware. Yeah. Knowing what your triggers are. And like I said, being able to identify, I think part of the leadership journey is being able to forecast that there might be a potential conflict. That's one example or one, group of instances. The other is, if it comes up as a surprise, being able to stop, collect.
Yes.
And then that's when I believe that this, these are the two instances when I think this create model can be very helpful. If you anticipate it, of course, sit with these, review them, maybe prepare. Yeah. But then when you find yourself or you and others in this, or if you're helping people navigate that, that's when I think this tool would come in handy. But I did just want to put when I read this, I was like, this would have been so helpful, so many times, but it's kind of hard to sometimes whip out an acronym.
Yeah, no.
But I think it's just knowing that there's a tool like this that can help us think through that. You don't necessarily have to follow it to a T, but some intention, that's what this is. This is intention.
Right.
That I'm going to think through this a little bit more strategically to avoid the conflict or use the conflict for good. And that's what I'm a proponent of is I didn't want to learn how to not do conflict.
Right.
I wanted to learn in therapy and through all my studies and this journey we've been on for the last 10 years, I wanted to learn to do it in a healthy way. And I've had a lot of examples growing up where conflict was not healthy. Right. And I think for a lot of us, that's the case.
Right.
And that comes from a personal place. So then you bring that into the work environment. That's my story to a T. And so for those of you who may have a similar journey like that, what I can say is kind of unlearning some of those tactics that are just natural for you because, again, it's nature versus unlearning. And I would say that that's one of the things. And I don't think I'll ever stop learning how to be better at this.
Sure.
Because, again, seasons in life present different things to you. But the unlearning was a big part. And if you've spent time with me on this journey, I would hope that part of what the part I've been working on is obvious more than not. I mean, sometimes, again, like I said, what you are naturally, your natural disposition based on what your background is, or it could be your family environment. It could be conflicts in school. I think people who deal with a lot of adverse bullying.
Yes.
In their formative years, yes. I think that you can't help but have an unhealthy relationship with conflict. And I see it now. I see the bullying that it may take place in person on social media. Mm-hmm. So we're living in a time where I think getting healthier around conflict, not trying to avoid it, is more. I mean, it's so important today more than ever. And again,
it is.
While we're bringing this into light for our listeners and looking forward to continuing to study this more. So and practice it, I should say.
Yeah, no, I mean, and practicing is the hard part, right? Or the easy part, depending on how you look at it.
It's your mindset.
It is. So you just gave a really good explanation, but I just wondered if you could summarize, what do you know for sure about conflict triggers?
Well, I know that everyone is different. And like I just stated, I mean, you've got to really do some homework on how do I feel about conflict, and be honest with yourself, and maybe bringing in a few trusted people in your life to say, what's it like to have an argument with me? Like, how does that start? What does that feel like for you? And, for me, and I've talked about this before, and I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, volume is an issue for me. But in my mind, I'm not talking, I don't hear it any differently. So keep that in mind. But others who are in a relationship with me, no matter what that type of relationship is, my volume can be off-putting. Yeah. So that's just one small example. So what I know for sure is you need to know yourself and how you're wired, and you need to trust those in your life to be honest with you about what conflict is like with you. I think obviously we believe that, the knowledge about our Enneagram types is power. So with all the episodes we've done on the Enneagram, if you're listening to this one, if you're listening to us for the first time and this is your first episode, I'd recommend that you go back and grab, do the first episode that we talked about on the Enneagram. But knowing this stuff is such powerful information.
Yes.
So I know that for sure can help with a lot of this. What I also know for sure is power in this instance is the ability to lead through conflict that is going to happen.
Yes.
It's not going to not happen. I
Right.
don't care what the environment is, business or personal.
Right.
So just knowing it's a coming
Yeah.
and deciding to have a healthier relationship with it, to me, is more than half the battle.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, I think, a misnomer about conflict is it's about others.
Mm-hmm.
It's about you. It really is. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Like, Megan, this is you.
Mm-hmm.
This is a problem you have, not a problem that there's conflict. There's always going to be conflict.
Yeah.
So you need to get your arms around your problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's manage and wrestle that. So I have to remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah,
And that helps.
absolutely.
That really helps. Okay. So big stuff today on the Enneagram. I loved this.
Yeah, and
helpful.
Again, I you said big, but because it's such it's a topic we all
Have to deal with.
Yeah, we don't have to, but we should.
Yes.
And what I hope we've shed a light on somewhat for our listeners today is that conflict is something that if we choose to have a better relationship with, we can make a huge difference in quite frankly, our emotional and mental health.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because
So
if you
much
think
better.
about where your stress comes from.
For me, yes.
Yes. And if people are out there saying, "Oh, it doesn't bother me at all," that might be something to look into as well.
Why? Why is that? Ding, ding, ding.
Exactly.
Love
So
it.
yeah, no, I think this is a topic that I hope we can all get a little bit more comfortable with.
For sure. All right. I thought it would be fun as we transition to music moment that we bring Miss Jessie in,
Are we gonna talk Taylor?
and we're going to talk Taylor.
Okay.
So
All right.
Jessie recently went to the Taylor Swift concert, which we've been talking about for months.
Right, and she's about to go again.
Yeah. So I want, for those of you that have been, great. You'll just get more Taylor information. For those of you that haven't been, maybe this will be a little spoiler to get you excited, as
Yes.
if you need more excitement.
Right. Exactly.
All right, let's go get Jessie. Okay, we have found Jessie.
Yes, I'm
She's
here.
here. You didn't have to look very hard. You were just right outside the door. But we wanted to talk about Taylor Swift and the concert experience.
Yes,
I
my
thought-
favorite topic ever.
So awesome. I thought it would be fun if we started with the ticket drama. Like the ticket drama.
Gosh, yes, the ticket drama.
God love you.
Wait, can I interject? I'd like to start with just a brief. I just got a look from across the table. I pulled an audible. A little bit about just a quick background on your relationship with Taylor, because it didn't
Sure.
just start with this concert. I mean,
No, I've always been a Taylor girl. Yeah.
I'd like our listeners to hear that, because
Yeah. I mean-
why the drama around the ticket was such a big damn deal. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows, like, in recent months, probably like the past year, I would say, Taylor's become like a lot more universally loved. There was a time where that wasn't always the case, but she's always been loved by me. I think for me, like I was telling you guys when I was buying the tickets, it was like such an emotional thing. I think because I was so young when her first album came out, like I was like 10, I think. So I've just like grown up listening to her. And actually the first concert I ever went to, fun fact, was Rascal Flatts. Taylor Swift opened.
So you went to see Rascal
So-
Flatts, or you went to see Taylor?
Well, it was for one of my friend's birthdays,
Okay.
and she wanted to see Rascal Flatts, but I was
All up in
so
it for Taylor.
jazzed about Taylor. So
Neat.
started way back then. But this ticket drama.
Tickets. This poor
It was
person,
crazy.
Jessie, wanted these
Crazy.
tickets so bad, and you didn't get into the lottery.
No, they had like the verified fan thing where you have to sign up. You get like an email if you're picked for the verified fan. And then they had a second thing. So I didn't get that. And neither did my fiance's sister. We were in it together trying to figure it out. We didn't get that. And then they announced like she has a partnership with Capital One. So the second part of that was if you have a Capital One card, you could use like the last 5 digits or whatever to get a code and get in early. So sweet Jordan.
Scavenger hunt?
Yeah,
Like,
It's
I mean,
just
what
because
is
it was like such an anticipated too. I think also Ticketmaster, just in
people.
general, it's starting to happen with a lot of artists. But because it was such a big tour, like the eras, it wasn't just like a one-off concert.
Right.
I think there was just like so much hype around it. So yeah, it was.
Jordan hooked you up.
Jordan,
Did you have a Capital One card, or did you go searching for
no,
one?
Jordan offered hers up.
She came to the rescue.
Yes,
Got
Jordan
it.
came to the rescue, but
Of course she did.
unfortunately, it didn't even rescue me. So I still tried to wait in line for it, and it would just like load part way, and then it would get stuck. And it was happening. I mean, there were like 4
Okay, so
girls in the
that's
office trying to
doing
do
it
the
at
same
once.
thing. None of them got through either. Actually, Hallie Caroline did. That's a lie.
That's right.
So it was a whole thing. I had to go through a morning. Like, I'm not going.
You were, because that's when I got looped in.
Yeah.
Was Jessie didn't get Taylor tickets, and I'm thinking,
And we were
I'm
all
gonna take out,
distraught.
no, I was going to take it alone. I was like, oh, she's going to the concert. It's just a matter of,
Yeah.
what's that going to run us?
Somehow we're going to figure it out. Well, I mean, luckily I talk about her enough that I had a lot of people in my corner. They were like, so what actually ended up happening was one of my best friends, she was in a Slack work chat, and someone said that she was selling her tickets. I guess she got tickets to like both nights, and one of her seats were better. So she was like, I want to sell this at cost to someone who really wants to go.
Well, that first of all, kudos to her for selling it at cost, because
Yeah.
the markup on those tickets that I saw were
Absurd. My parents.
I would love to say good for Taylor, but Taylor's not.
She's not
getting
even-
it. She's not.
Yeah.
No.
It's not good for Taylor, and it's
No.
not good for the fans. It's only good for Well, I won't even get
people.
into that. Yeah. It's not even Ticketmaster. It's actually people who buy it.
The scalpers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So my parents were really mad at first when they found out I was going, because they were like, "Oh my God, how much money did you spend on this?" Like, I promise it wasn't. I mean, they weren't cheap, but it was a normal concert ticket.
Yeah. Right.
So, I ended up through all of that able to go. So,
And how was it?
oh my gosh, you guys, it is the craziest thing ever. Like,
Okay, but so you saw her open for Rascal Flatts. Have you seen her since then, or was
I
this the
saw
next time?
her again for the Reputation tour.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. How many times you've seen her? So, okay, so
Yeah.
now this would be
3.
3.
3.
Okay.
Yes. It was the craziest experience I've ever had. Like, one, everyone just needs to understand, I was way, 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 way up in the nosebleeds. Like, I was far away, and you never would have known. Like, it felt like you were right there with her. She had like the big screens going at Cowboy Stadium. Every single person in that stadium was singing the words to every song. Like, it was so wild. Just like, and every seat was filled. I was worried about not being like close, because I was like, I know I'm going to be wanting to stand up, scream every word to every song. And I was like, I wonder, like, up in the 400 section, surely people are going to be chilling, sitting down. But no.
No.
Everyone was standing up the whole
That
time.
makes me happy.
They say the
Yeah.
real fans are up
It
in the
was,
nosebleeds.
oh my gosh, it was so amazing. So amazing. And like,
And you saw her here in Dallas. So she broke a record.
Mm-hmm.
She's the only artist to sell out
3 nights in a
3
row.
nights in a row. That's
And she broke
our big
her
artist.
own record.
She broke her own.
Yeah, she broke the record at the Reputation tour
Okay.
for 2 nights in a row. So she broke her own record for 3 nights in a row.
Wow.
And it was,
So amazing.
you guys, leaving that stadium was the world's biggest nightmare. Like,
I bet.
we walked, I think, 2 miles away
Oh. So you got
for
your
Will
steps
to
in.
pick us up.
Oh, wow.
And he was like dead stopped. Like, he
Not
could not
moving.
move.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was crazy. But
So I have a question. As
Yeah.
you know, Mackie Payton, she was the commencement speaker at Mackie's
Yes.
graduation. And I was, of course, sharing
So jealous.
those things. But she was so inspirational in her maturity and her wisdom with what she shared. But it was also very humble.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, is that where her concerts are now?
Yeah.
Like, because I'm
Totally.
the pieces that I'm able to pick up on, and now that I'm kind of interested in, she's done so many shows now with this particular tour, you can get snippets, and I'm like, she is the real deal. I mean, I've known that.
Oh, totally.
But it's just the way she's showing up to me is just, I want more of our artists to be an example. And I just find her to be consistently in that lane.
Yeah.
And raising the bar for how to show up. And she's so fan forward, but I just really appreciate her as an artist in that realm, not just because of her insane talent as a writer, which is what I care the most about, and a performer.
Me too.
And then now you're going to say, okay, she's certainly an example for all of us. I don't know that she's, I think at one time she was kind of boxed into a particular age group. Like you said, like you were 10 when she came out, and you're a lifelong fan. But I think she's just, you used the word at the beginning, like universal.
Yeah.
And more, she's been mainstream.
I mean, she's more famous than she's ever been. And like you said, like it was just really cool to see. She's so personable when she's up there. Like I just remember seeing like clips of her from shows and people being like saying things, criticizing her, saying like she's stuffy or she's robotic with her dancing. And like, I think there was probably a time where she was, you know, trying to be so perfect, getting it all right. And like, I just thought the coolest part of the concert was like, she had a couple of times where she like literally started laughing in the middle of songs when she was playing them. Like you could just tell like that mic is on and she's like having so much fun up there. I don't know if you saw clips of her in Nashville. It was like pouring rain, pouring. It got delayed for like 3 hours, I think.
Wow.
So she didn't start playing until super late. It went till like 2 a.m. But she's like out there like kicking up the rain and just like having so much fun. So I think that's just really cool to see from someone who's so insanely famous, like you would never expect.
Well, yeah, because I think that we could probably all think of 5 artists right now who would never do that.
Right.
And, you know, couldn't pull that off.
And like you said, just like so fan forward. Like I think it would be so easy for her to just cancel a show like that and be like, I'm not going to wait 3 hours to perform in the rain. All my equipment's going to get messed up. And she was like posting on social media being like, I know the weather's crazy, but like, I'm ready to play for you guys. So and everyone just like waited it out for 3 hours there. So
awesome.
Yeah. It was very cool.
When I think about Self Smarter, I think Taylor Swift with all her entire journey is just laden with lessons and comebacks, but comebacks from things that so many times were outside of her control.
Totally.
Like sometimes you're coming back from your own mistakes or missteps. I'm
Right.
not suggesting that Taylor doesn't have those.
Right.
But in many cases, there are just things that were put on her that she had to recover from that she didn't instigate.
Right.
You know, and again, I won't get off on all those rants because Jessie and I might.
I could, yeah.
Oh God, goodness, they'd have to bring us a glass of wine, and we might not ever leave talking about it. But I really love her as an example. And I used to say this with Mackie, as I love her as an example for young women, and now I love her as an example
For anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody can learn from Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think that's what makes her so appealing.
Yeah, I agree.
So I heard through the grapevine
That I'm seeing her again.
Yeah.
I am. Yes.
Number
And
4.
I'm so excited. Also, like, I went into the Dallas concert completely blind. Like, I was so intentionally avoiding set lists, any video spoilers. Like, I wanted to just be like so shocked. And that was amazing. Like, it was so cool to see it that way, but I'm just as excited to see it a second time.
And
like,
where's the next show?
Chicago.
Oh, okay. So that'll be a fun weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she does, like, I don't know if you guys know, but she does 2 surprise songs at each show.
They're always different,
Her
right?
songs, or do they?
Her
she brings
songs.
on a guest.
Like
Her
from another
songs.
another
So
album.
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
so she has like, I mean, she picks like a couple songs from each album,
Gosh,
and
that's
then because she has so many songs, so there's like only so long of a set list you can do.
Yeah.
But for each show, she picks 2 songs, and for the Dallas one, I just got super lucky. It's my favorite song of all time. And I was telling everyone before I went, I was like, oh, I really hope she plays clean. Like, I would die if she plays clean, but she's not going to. Like,
Because that was never a single.
It's not one of her like most popular songs. People that are like Taylor Swift fans love it. It's a great song, but like, it's just not one of the ones that you think of. So I was like, I'm not going to get it. And then she starts playing, and she was like, Gracie Abrams was opening for her. I guess she's a big fan of Clean. And she was like, yeah, before the show, this is Gracie's first night on tour with us. She had a request, and she asked that I play Clean, and she starts playing it. And I was like, you're kidding.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
I did not know that part of the story.
Yeah, so that was really
First of all, I don't
cool.
know that song. I will know it.
Go listen.
You'll
love it.
At the end of the night.
Yeah,
I'll know
you'll
every
love
word
it. It's
because
so good.
I love your taste in music.
So good.
But I love that. That's so cool. That's a great way to help fans
Connect.
Well, the set list.
Yeah.
You're right. Like when you have that many songs, you can go back and possibly play. That'd be a 10-hour concert.
Totally. And she's got to play all the hits, the Shake It Off.
Yeah.
That we,
Yes.
So it's a fun way to kind of throw in a wrench.
That is very cool. So we can't wait to hear how Chicago compares to Dallas
I'll let you guys
what the
know.
2 songs are. Who's opening for her in Chicago?
I honestly have no idea.
Okay. Well, good for them.
I'm not
Whoever
there
it
for
is,
I
that
know.
artist. I mean, can you imagine the lineup of people who want to open up for Taylor Swift?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
it's
a long list.
Yeah, awesome. And like the openers are, I think they're well known, but they're definitely a lot smaller, which is cool. Like they're getting a
she's
big
not
break.
picking- yeah.
Yeah.
This is a break for them. Huge. You're right. Well, yay, Jessie. Thank
Yay,
you.
thanks
This
for
has been
having
fun.
me.
No, it was
Fun
nice
to talk
to have
about
you
my
in
favorite
here.
topic.
Well, thank you for joining us. We really
course.
appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for hanging with us today, talking Enneagram and Taylor Swift. Remember, we'll have links. Danelle mentioned some statistics, and we have a study for you from Myers-Briggs that we'll put in the show notes. Remember to tell a friend. And until next week, we send you into the week with grateful hearts.
Goodbye, everyone.
As always, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Self Smarter Podcasts. You can also leave a rating or review if you enjoyed what you heard today. Not only does this mean so much to us, but it also helps other leaders and future leaders find our community. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us in becoming self-smarter. This podcast is produced by Snacks Media, and music is from a free platform. Well, that is until Brandy Carlisle reaches out to us to write the original score for our podcast. Friends, have a great rest of your day.